The life of the historical geisha was very different from the Western notion which saw them as prostitutes and brothels. The geisha had to go through exhaustive training to obtain the coveted title. Moreover, during the Edo period and quite some time after, being a geisha was one of the few ways for a Japanese woman to make a decent living and achieve some autonomy. In today's video, we'll tell you what the life of a geisha was like. The end of this video will shock you, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video interesting. The first geisha were not women, but men. The social restrictions at the time did not allow women to have access to forms of amusement and entertainment. These men were the taikomochi. They fulfilled many roles over the centuries, including entertaining a daimyo, taking on a role like that of a court gesture, or singing, dancing, telling jokes and stories. By the 17th century, many left the court and were hired by courtesans to entertain guests. At the height of the popularity, in the mid-1700s, there were more than 500 male geishas in Japan, but that number decreased as more women accessed the profession. In the late 17th century, parents who needed money used to send their daughters to singing and dancing lessons in the hope that they would follow these professions. These young dancers were known as odoriko dancer, and geishas are believed to be their direct evolution. The word geisha first appeared when these women reached the age of 20 and could not refer to themselves as girls. 20 is the age of adulthood in Japan. Among the various names they proposed was geisha. In Japanese, geisha means practitioner of the art. The odoriko were highly skilled dancers, and their chastity was part of what attracted their patrons. As time progressed, many odoriko became prostitutes. The first person recorded as a geisha was one of these prostitutes. This contributed to the widespread idea that all geishas were prostitutes. But the class of women historically known as geisha, who followed the example of their male predecessors, working only as performers, were not prostitutes. They obviously felt vexed at being mistaken for prostitutes. To avoid confusion, they fastened their kimonos in the back. Sex workers did it in the front. The notion that all geisha were prostitutes became popular in the West. During World War II, American soldiers on assignment in Japan engaged in sexual acts with Japanese women who dressed up and painted their faces like geishas. Experts such as anthropologist Liza Dalby, who has done extensive research on geishas, argue that these women, although they adopted the designation geisha girls, were not geisha but merely imitations. Unlike traditional geishas, these women did not undergo the rigorous training necessary to earn the title. They were also less selective with their customers, as many geishas refused to entertain Americans. Another factor that may have contributed to the misconception that all geishas were prostitutes is the practice of mizu-age. To become a geisha, geisha in training would have to sell their virginity to the highest-paying patron as part of her coming-of-age ritual. Although it was a one-time act, this associated the profession with payment for sex. Although this antiquated procedure was outlawed in 1959, it is not unreasonable to claim that the practice continues to occur to this day. The main role of geishas was entertainment. Geishas were trained to sing, dance, play the shamisen, and other performing arts. Over time, geishas became known as experts in one or more their arts. Customers sought out geishas based on their expertise. To become a geisha, young girls had to undergo a long and extensive training. This could begin at the age of 3 and last until the age of 20. A geisha in training was called a maiko. She received guidance from her oni-san or older sister. Besides perfecting various performing arts, the maiko had to learn calligraphy, ikebana, flower arranging, and how to entertain customers and captivating conversations. They also learned how to apply complicated makeup, which even after several years still required hours to apply, and how to style their hair. Since a hairstyle required a lot of time, the geishas had to sleep on a wooden brick so as to not undo it. But older geishas could, and still can, wear wig. The apprentices were also supposed to learn how to speak and how to walk gracefully, balancing on tall wooden clogs. There was also teaching on how to serve drinks delicately without getting the sleeve of the kimono wet. When the training was over, the apprentice was handed several kimonos. The maikos have a tail-printed collar, huge sleeves, and a wide cascading belt in the back. The geisha's kimono was discreet, with a white collar and soft embroidery. They were made of silk and can cost around 10,000 USD. An employee of the house helped them put them on. All this rigorous training has an end. The geishas must make a successful meeting. For example, the Shiro white geishas were only entertainers. The Kido, gate stood at the entrance of houses, playing shamisen to attract customers. As stated above, geisha training required long and hard years of training, but geisha remained active as they got older. After all, a geisha with more years on her resume would have more experience and probably be more talented. The older geisha would mentor young beginners who hoped to become maiko. Some of these geishas even became owners of a geisha house. Many geishas were free to choose how they received their customers and enjoyed many freedoms from other women. During the Edo period, and even in World War II, geishas were among the few women who earned their own wages. After paying the debts of the geisha house, which included lodging, training, food, and kimonos, they kept most of their wages. Unlike most women in the Edo period, who received an education in housework, geisha studied various subjects, including literature, poetry, and politics. Many believed that geishas were submissive and subservient, but the truth was the opposite. Geishas were supposed to be entertainers, being allowed to converse with men on different subjects, a privilege that many of their clients' wives did not have. Since their work required them to be witty conversationalists, geishas were allowed to talk to men as equals. At a time when women had little power or social status, geishas belonged to a community run primarily by women. They ran the geisha houses and kept most of the income. After paying their debts, geishas could have independence, keeping most of their wages after paying the fee to the house where they worked. Men could not make decisions on behalf of the geisha. Despite living in a period where women had little or no freedom, geishas were significantly independent. At the height of their popularity, around 1900, there were 25,000 geishas in Japan. Today, there are about 1,000, and the rigorous training continues. It is important to remember that their lives have been told in books, films, and plays.